That's the same picture as that one, except it's smaller.
Well, same artist or
Same artist, all three of these.
robot?
The same artist.
So I can forward, I have to leave it and after, as you talk.
Oh, so in 5 minutes. Okay, not to worry. And just so you all are aware, I'm gonna need to leave at 10 to go present something in the house, so.
So we'll be here.
If
Yeah. Right.
Welcome
Welcome
to
our okay, so good morning. This is Senate Natural Resources and Energy, and it is, oh gosh, it is March 19th. How'd that happen? And we are starting morning talking about SB 28, which was really, it's really an economic development bill, which is somewhere, maybe finance now. We don't have it.
Oh, that's right, yeah,
So-
I would have to look to finance
I,
if it's not at Probst
yes.
somewhere.
I think it's
So-
appropriate.
I know you're Probst, yeah,
But I'm joined by Senator Ron Hinsdale.
thank you,
Welcome.
thank you. Always nice to be on Senate Natural Resources, for the record, Senator Paige Rocklandale. I am not the main reporter of S 328, our chair is. But she asked me to report, I believe, the two sections that are most under consideration by your committee, and I'm happy to go through more elements of the bill. But my basic overview, and you've probably heard this as it relates to S 325 as well, is you know, we passed the Home Act, then we passed Act 181 in back-to-back sessions. And you know, I want to give Senator Bungartz a lot of credit for the original language of the Home Act. And I think every year since, we've been asked, what did you mean by that? And I actually have said, you know, on the public record in multiple towns that have debated what we meant by along water and sewer. What we meant. So at some point, I think I said on the public record, I need to go back and make sure we're clarifying our legislative intent, because I can't speak for the entire legislature about what we meant. But we underscored in our testimony over and over again, you know, this session before this bill came to you, that we, number one, want to harmonize the Home Act and Act 181. So you shouldn't face, you know, one exemption to build or how many units you can construct under municipal regulation, and then a totally different regulation for Act 250. And we know, you know, we're talking about the road rule while we're talking about what does it mean to be along a road that has water and sewer. So the overall goal was to try and do as much harmonizing as possible, and to really recognize, and this I think was underscored in both of our committees during the drafting of these bills, that we have about 41 square miles of water and sewer infrastructure in the state. It is an incredibly precious resource. And it is an incredibly precious resource that the federal government, state government, and municipal taxpayers have all paid for. And so, even I believe in some of the original language that's been, you know, that gave rise to the Home Act, we contemplated allowing I would call a quad flex by right when you're building along water and sewer. So this would essentially, and we talked in our committees about the size of a barn, you know, that like we are not trying to talk about vast new opportunities for development. But we have seen water and sewer hookups used as a real inflection point to stop multifamily housing from being built. I sometimes use the example of a car wash in my area on Route 7. I use the car wash. Car wash is not, you know, an eyesore in any such way, but it was a bowling alley and it was slated to be about 19 units of housing. And there was a lot of commotion about the water use, et cetera. And what it didn't need was a new Act 250 permit to become another commercial project. So they gave up on the housing and it became a car wash, which I think uses a lot of water. So, I don't think we're necessarily meeting our environmental goals by stopping housing from being able to get access to water sewer where there is capacity, which we wrote over and over again in this room, what we meant by capacity, but given the capacity, I really wanna be able to say this precious infrastructure needs to be accessed by multifamily housing. If you would otherwise allow a single family home to be built on the same site, you need to allow up to 4 units. So from there, I see that you have made some changes that I don't automatically alarm me. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, cause I would love to tell you about the change that we're contemplating, but if you have, I don't wanna cut you off though, if you have more to say about like the other changes or anything.
Is the only other change, so then the other thing I think was under consideration in your committee was around manufactured housing by right. I'm not sure if that's touched in this amendment, we can talk more about that if you'd like, and then, I was on the farm worker task force that we had last year, so I welcome certainly ensuring that we don't negatively impact and hopefully positively impact the creation of safe housing, safe modernized housing for farmers.
Yes. No, absolutely, so we're not touching anything with the manufactured housing, in this amendment, are you looking at the draft 2.1 of the amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, it's, the second instance of amendment is just, it's some additions, so, yeah, it's this report and, it's a couple reports, basically.
Okay.
But then so just to catch you up, and I apologize for being like low energy.
It's okay.
But we had some really great testimony yesterday. Because we were trying to figure out like, okay, is 2,000 feet the right distance?
Right.
And because it is, so what we heard from, VLCT and from the fellow from St. Albans, was a planner.
Chip.
Yes.
Sawyer.
Chip Sawyer, so.
Chip's the regular.
Just.
And we had asked them to do some work.
Yeah.
And you may have heard, they came in at a much lower number of feet.
Yes.
And then I thought, okay, quarter mile,
Yeah.
like 1,200 feet.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Close.
More. The road rule is 800 feet or 2,000.
Yeah.
So I never got married to the number.
Yeah, okay.
But I wanted, and so I saw an earlier draft of yours where you had maybe 2 numbers, like a quarter mile and 200 feet.
Right, kind of tying it more to the interim exemptions rather than the road rule.
Right.
But through that conversation, it became clear that if we set a so since the Home Act, all these municipalities have gone through some kind of ordinance rulemaking, they don't rulemaking, the ordinance and
bylaw modernization.
Right, and so that they all have their maps or their own distances based on the specific needs.
Sure.
And so we came to feel, I'm not sure if I can really speak for everybody in this, but I'm just say this generally, I suppose, that because there's two clauses, there's Romanet I and Romanet II. And Romanet II is where the municipality says, this is our area.
Right.
And if we're talking about an area served by municipal water and sewer, they should know what that area is.
Yes.
It's a municipality with some level of sophistication. And so, the question is like, what is Romanet I doing? And it's like the default, but what we heard from BLCT was that most municipalities have done this work, and if we set a new distance, then that would be a signal to municipalities that they have to go through ordinance again.
Right.
And they were like, don't make us do that again.
Right.
And we were like, what, I think we contemplated 300 feet, we contemplated, quarter mile. And the feedback that we got was like, there is no one size fits all that's gonna make sense.
Sure.
So, because if you have a line it could, like, even 300 feet could be straight up cliff. It
Yes.
could be, 300 feet into the next municipality.
Right,
It could be 300 feet, into conservation land, like
Mhm.
it's, and there's, so it's.
right.
It,
So
yeah,
our original goal was to say, if you can't put anything there,
yeah,
then fine. If you can't put a single family home there, then you can't put a quadplex there.
yeah,
What you may have heard is some of these communities were in pre-litigation, expensive
Yeah.
pre-litigation about what it meant to be along a road with water and sewer.
yeah,
And be told you're not served by
Yeah,
water and sewer.
right,
In fact, one of those properties had a sewer connection, but not a water connection.
oh, yeah,
But the water was in the road, so what do we need? So
Yeah.
if your language still solves for that, like doesn't say that, basically doesn't say you are prohibited from getting those hookups if other development would be able to occur on, say, that side of the road. Like I know VLCT and others have said, well, we have a scenic view on one side in our community and we allow development on the other side. So I want to leave it up to municipalities, I
Yeah.
really do.
yeah,
I also wanna make sure that, you know, I mean, we've had people say, well, there's a plot, they're subdivided for 2 single family homes, you're saying they can have 8 units, and I'm
Yeah.
saying, yes,
yeah,
they can have 8 units.
yes, well, and I think, so I.
Instead of one large home, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, there are footprints of very large single family homes that take up way more capacity and have a larger footprint.
So I think even if, I think
Yeah.
what you were describing is, so on page 3 of the amendment is B. I could be wrong, but I think, I mean,
Okay.
your question is valid,
Mm-hmm,
and we should talk with Ellen,
Mhm.
see what she says, but I'm wondering, I'm gonna wonder this out loud, if B covers that, so let's.
Well, I would see, and I, you know, Senator Baumgart's worked on this language as well over the years. What I'm wondering is if a housing type otherwise allowed in this chapter includes 4 units. Because we have duplexing by right, we have manufactured housing by right, and past this.
yeah.
Have you heard Ellen say this would allow a quadplex because it is a housing type in this chapter?
We have not had that conversation, but we can ask her that.
Okay,
And so it will ask, does this
Right.
include, you know, other housing types in this
Right.
chapter, does this include duplexing by right or quadplexing?
right, the language we used that seemed to match our intent and was celebrated widely after the Home Act
Yeah.
was. We've allowed duplexing by right everywhere in the
Yeah.
state, and we allowed quadplexing by right along water and sewer.
Yeah,
We just wanna make that true.
yeah,
That was everyone's intent, and I think at some point in this committee, they were, you know, Senator Gray was like, make it 5 units or something, so it was never really a fight between us.
Yeah.
It's about what did we mean
right.
and how do we achieve that, which is very hard as we all of these.
Indeed. Okay, so we have not, like, we have, this draft comes to us based on the conversation that we had yesterday.
Yeah.
So we have not had Ellen walk us through it, but we will.
Right,
And when she does, we can ask.
right, yeah.
And let me know.
I don't think anyone's operating, you know, under the radar in some way. The LCT understood my intent, but we do get into conversations about, you know, yes, this is what we mean, and I wanna make sure, cause we kept saying it over and over in the committee, yes, we mean that if there are 5 plots along the road that were envisioned for single family homes and they're along the main water sewer line, that you can have quadplexes in each of those subdivided plots. And they can still, what's the word I'm looking for, regulate for setback, for square footage requirements, for runoff, for in some cases aesthetics of a building. They just cannot say no 2 to 4 unit properties here.
Yeah, seems good to me. So we will look further into that.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to tell us about the
Yeah.
thoughts and economic.
Thank you for your work on S 325 as well. The committee greatly appreciate that, and if I may, just have one more moment.
Sure.
Privilege to say that both Home Act and Act 181 were first voted out of Senate Economic Development. And I would say our intention when those bills left our committee was to find areas to create more exemption from Act 250. And I now feel partially responsible for this feeling that people have that we were bargaining away their areas where there is more potential for Act 250 oversight. When that was never part of our originally contemplated bill. We do believe in the tiers, and my own personal ad lib is tier 2 is hanging out there, ready, I believe, to be used to say, hey, people already live here.
What do we do?
What do we do here that doesn't add new regulation? When we talked, and I remember specific phrases about tier 3 in the final negotiations or some level of negotiations last biennium, we were talking about floodplains, ledges, slopes, really specific areas where even if there has been human activity there, we now believe it is dangerous or so sensitive that for both humans and ecosystems, we do not want to build there. Just trying to underscore our intent, because I see how people thought we might have made some bargain to preserve rural areas in amber, and that was never the intent of Act 181. So we appreciate you giving all of that more time to be considered, because our real goal was those housing exemptions. And for more housing to be developed in all parts of the state where people can remain close to their families, age in place, families can move into rural parts of the state without struggling to access housing.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, yes.
Well, speaking of, no, you don't.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry.
You can all-
Speaking of S 325,
Yes.
I noticed it was dropped off the notice down.
Oh, yes. This is
So-
because it is universe.
Okay.
So, because it has that appropriation section.
Yeah,
So it's,
I got confused too, but
Usually it stays on the notice calendar when it goes through the money committee.
it stays on the notice calendar until it's moved and then it goes off the notice calendar.
Okay. All right.
I've done it.
I mean, it was referred to appropriation, but
So,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I did request a fiscal note on 325, so appropriations got 325 yesterday. And so we're waiting to vote it out until we get the fiscal note.
yeah, I think they said we're gonna get to it tomorrow.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's
Yeah, okay, thank you.
hopefully
Thank you for all your work.
continuing on. Thank you. Any other thoughts you just want to share? Otherwise, we're gonna take a break until 9:30. Okay, super duper, thank you.
Okay. I think some people, this could be sitting here, while we're right by inside, and you don't need to recommend observing them. Yeah. But that is. Sure. Don't be such a rude fan. Yeah. So sad. They tell us. Step out of the table. Are you gonna show this? Okay, let's do it. Oh, can you talk your, the speaker? Great, okay, super. All right, this is Senate Natural Resource and Energy, coming back for break, and then, we're joined by folks from the Public Utility Commission, welcome.
Morning, thank you, Senator Watson, Joe Watson, and the committee for having us today. My name is Steph Hoffman, I'm general counsel of the PUC, and this is Wes Skidmore, a staff attorney. We're here to talk about the definition, recommended definition of plant in section 8002 of Title 30. So a project that was tasked with, we were tasked with last year. So Act 38 of 2025 required the commission to provide a recommended amended definition of the word plant. Participants and interested parties engaged in a process that the commission initiated in our electronic filing system. We built cases, we started an investigation case and invited developers, state agencies to participate in this process. And we were tasked with considering several different sort of statutory policy considerations in looking at the definition of plant. One was land use benefits of co-location of electric generation facilities, the ability to ensure comprehensive review of those facilities, and the potential impact on ratepayers. A little bit more about the process that we conducted. Last June, we opened that commission proceeding and invited all the participants to contribute to that proceeding. And we saw different proposed definitions of the term plant as it is used in statutes. We put out, after that process began, definition for comment and took several rounds of comments on that proposed definition. That was the result of our receiving that initial round of suggestions. We received 2 additional rounds of comments. We also held 2 workshops in this proceeding, and we provided an opportunity for final comment before submitting a definition to the committees of jurisdiction. And I just want to flag here that we did submit to this committee, as we did to the House Committee of Jurisdiction, also a letter on a concept, a decommissioning fund concept that I just wanted to put a pin in for now, but we're working on that project. We believe it makes sense that these 2 things are paired together. The stakeholder groups or the interested party groups are identical, and we consulted with both of them throughout this proceeding. And so we wanted to be able to offer language on that issue as well. So our proposed definition that was passed by the House, it includes several components. Those 3 high-level components are a new general standard, or what I consider sort of the default definition of what a plant is. Some exceptions to that definition where we would still find, where we would not find a single plant, if you will, but we would find multiple plants. And then some additional definitions that were suggested to be added to that section 8,002 that help facilitate interpreting the standard definition plan that we propose. Under the standard definition of the default standard, we have two components. Are the facilities on the same or contiguous parcels? And do they use the same electricity generating technology? That just means solar PV or wind or hydroelectric.
Yes, go ahead.
So would the new standard, is it both or is it and or?
It's and.
Okay.
So if you're on the same parcel and you're both solar, both facilities are solar facilities, then you're one.
And if you're contiguous, both solar,
You're one plant.
okay,
And I'll show some examples of this in a
Okay.
moment.
thank you.
And then the exception, so these were areas where we found that using those two standards might come into conflict with some other policy considerations and that an exception is warranted. The first exception, which is little a in that definition, is individual residential net metering. That means two neighbors who are on contiguous parcels should each be able to have a residential sized solar facility at their home. The second is multi-owner individual residential net metering. And we use the definition that's found elsewhere in the statutes on common interest communities to define what that means. This is so if you have a condominium unit or you have a duplex, triplex situation, we want those individual customers to be able to participate in that metering again at the residential level. And then the final category is more than one renewable energy program facility located on the same site. And I'm going to drill down in a moment a little bit on that one because it's the most complicated. And we did refine the definition during the course of our time in the House on this issue, working with the interested parties involved. And then there are 4 words that we suggest defining elsewhere. That's common interest community, the word contiguous, electricity generating technologies, and point of interconnection, all terms used in our definition to understand the exception for the standard. So this is drilling down a little bit on exception C. The top part of this that's a little bit smaller just shows the introduction so that you can see how this exception fits in. But essentially, if you're not going to co-locate two facilities on the same, you're not allowed to co-locate two facilities on the same parcel or contiguous parcels if you would exceed one of the statutory caps for a financial incentive program. So you cannot have more than 500 kW net metering on the same parcel or contiguous parcels. And you cannot have more than 2.2 megawatts of standard offer program facilities on the same parcel or contiguous parcels. And you cannot have both. It's one program or the other program, and it's the cap for that program. Otherwise, you can have as much additional solar on those sites as is otherwise allowed in the statutory criteria. So still screening for all of the sort of natural resource impacts and siting impacts and concerns, but we no longer concern ourselves with those once those caps are met. And I'm going to show some examples of what this means. So under the proposed definitions, what can be cited? These are just 3 illustrations of what could be allowed. The first is where you have 500 kW net metering on a site. That could be a loan. By the way, any one of these individual examples could be a loan on the site, of course. Can you add 5 megawatts under Res Tier 2? Of course. Because that is in the financial incentive program facility, but it is governed by the definition of plant in statute. So we have to concern ourselves because there's a 5 megawatt capacity cap for the Res Tier 2 facilities. However, there isn't a direct financial incentive for those facilities. So as long as only 500 kW of net metering is getting the financial benefit of that program on a site, and then we are fulfilling the statutory prerogative of that capacity cap, and we're not worried about them adding other developers or the same developer adding additional capacity in another form, not within the net metering program on that site. The second example in B shows the same scenario, but with a standard offer program facility instead of the net metering facility, again at that capacity cap of 2.2 megawatts for standard offer. You could add on to that site not net metering and not additional standard offer, but you could have a res tier 2 facility, or these are the blue circles could also represent a 5 megawatt PPA, or sometimes even beyond. So power purchase agreement with utility, this is a direct bilateral agreement with utility to purchase the power from that facility.
So those blue circles up there. Is there generation going on in that circle or?
Yes, that is still another generating facility, it's just not under one of these two programs, net metering or standard offer.
Could it be, but it wouldn't be solar, it would be,
It could be
What-
solar,
okay, so solar 5 megawatts, but it purchase power.
yes, a purchase power agreement facility that's often done under Res Tier 2. A bilateral agreement with the utility to develop that power and basically the developer build that facility and then the
Okay.
utility receives that power directly
Okay, got it.
under that contract.
Yeah.
And then in C, under the current definition, the one that exists today in statute, you're not allowed to have this arrangement where you don't have net metering or the standard offer program, but you do have 2 5 megawatt Res Tier 2 facilities on the same site. Under the new definition, that would also fill out. You can co-locate greatly as many power purchase agreement facilities on a site as the site permits for the other tier. And then what can't be cited under the new proposed definition, as I mentioned before, is you cannot have 500 kW net metering and 2.2 megawatt standard offer. You also somewhat more obviously can't have more than 500 kW net metering or more than 2.2 megawatt standard offer, because that would exceed both of those program statutory capacity caps. Questions and comments?
So trying to wrap my head around this, if I was, I feel like I need to say it back to you to make sure that I understand. So the reason for the new standards or the new rules would be that because you're trying to keep the integrity of the programs themselves, right? That there's limits baked into the net metering and standard offer. And if you had, effectively, if you had 2 500 kilowatt systems next to each other, you really kind of getting around the limit. Is that a fair way to frame that?
That's absolutely accurate.
Okay, and but if it was power purchase agreement, you need it because of a renewable energy standard or whatever, then that's a different thing, and so it's perfectly fine to have those. And when you have that box there, around, so I am mad, does that box represent? Well, what I'm imagining that represents is it could be 1 parcel, or it could be 2 parcels that abut each other. Is that accurate?
It can represent both under the desk, as long as they're on bus, yes.
Okay, well, and so just playing this out a little bit. What if you had 3 or 4 parcels that were ultimately all abutting each other? I feel like you could end up with some interesting, it's probably not worth, trying to play the what if game and.
But that would be 1 rectangle, right? If you had 3 or 4
Right,
budding parcels, that would be 1 rectangle.
As long as you have to sort of start from the parcel where one facility is, and then ask, are the other parcels contiguous to that one? And sort of do the analysis that way. I will say this might be helpful, I hope it is helpful. The status quo is far more complicated. So under the status quo's definition, we have to evaluate the following: whether the facility is the same project, which asks, is it proximate? No definition of that word. Is it, are there continuity in the time of construction, which according to the Supreme Court means not just shovels in the ground, but all project planning and building from inception to completion, and same ownership, also not defined. Then we have to ask, also, is there shared equipment infrastructure? There are examples in the statute and as interpreted by the Supreme Court, but again, not defined terms. So this analysis causes a lot of ambiguity and a lot therefore of litigation. This issue is one of the highest appealed issues we've had in the last 5 to 7 years at the Supreme Court. Because every case where this is implicated, we have to ask all of these legal questions and answer them based on case law at the commission and the Supreme Court to interpret. And this is a saga that is dated back till the early 2010s. When the statute went through multiple changes at that point in order to deal with kind of the building on of a definition that was actually originally conceived of for wind projects. So the examples in the statute had to do with wind projects rather than solar, but it's been adapted to solar, and so it's not a great fit. So we were trying to maximize the administrative efficiency, screening process, ratepayer impact consequences of those two financial incentive programs, meaning the standard offer program and that metering program give a financial benefit to the facility, but that is borne by the ratepayers. And so we have to balance that with use of land and also the integrity of these programs, right? They're distributed generation based programs. So we think with all the interested party engagement, where we've landed balances those different considerations and gives us a workable definition that yes, there are certainly fact patterns that will inevitably challenge this definition, but hopefully due to the other definitions and the clarity with and simplicity of this, I know it seems complicated, but comparatively it's quite simple. We will minimize, if not eliminate, a lot of the litigation that we see.
Adam, feel free to say, can't answer my question. I'm wondering if, because is there ongoing litigation about this right now?
Yes.
And if we make this change, will that affect the case that is in process? Or go ahead.
So
And if you don't want to comment on this, okay, it's ongoing litigation, I understand, but.
I can comment at a high level, certainly. Cases that are pending before the commission take the laws they find it when they file with us. So changing the definition now doesn't automatically apply retroactively. Most laws are only prospective in nature unless they explicitly indicate that. Some of the litigation, that doesn't mean folks can't withdraw petitions and refile them with us, if that is appropriate or warranted from their perspective. Some of the federal litigation might be impacted on a briefing, right? If the legislature makes a change, they may use that information in part of that litigation or argue in favor of certain outcomes. So I would say that's the effect it could have in this context. There may be 1 or 2 cases at the Supreme Court as well, where that same sort of logic, right?
Well, that's helpful. But yes.
So in all of these constructs, it matters not, according to the rules you guys are posting, whether that generation or the RECs is heading out of state or in state, making a difference.
This definition does not implicate any use in the statute of that issue.
Okay.
The way that the word plant is used as a screening tool is more for whether the facilities are permitted and meet a cap of some sort in most contexts. I will say that for the res tier 2 projects, in order to qualify for the res,
It has to be.
it has to meet certain requirements, including meeting that cap. So that's where it fits in terms of the res and rec qualification as a res tier 2 project.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Okay, super, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll move into Mr. Sterling, welcome.
Fantastic.
Well, it's way later.
I don't know, we'll just roll, if it goes, it goes.
Okay,
Hi, Peter Sterling, Renewable Energy Vermont, thank you so much.
for taking the time to discuss this, to cut to the need. We support the proposal by the something that's the stuff. We support what the PUC did to come up with this. There we go. So, all right, great. Okay, so thank you again so much for taking this up. Here on this opening slide, you can see some land that would be opened up on a gravel pit by this new definition, will make easier to develop on this new definition. As you heard in 2025, the legislature asked PUC to change the definition of plant. We support the PUC's report on single plant because it helps avoid unnecessary costs associated with bringing source of solar online, preserves open spaces by encouraging solar development on already developed sites, avoids unnecessary construction, conserving natural resources on the sites that are being developed, streamlines the application process, removes costly legal uncertainty that hinders investment in co-locating renewables, and because towns have responded to the state's energy planning requirements, trying to cluster solar development, this makes it a little easier for towns to manage that development. Just a couple examples of why we think this will help. Well, first, the PUC's definition again applies to projects under 5 megawatts, that's about 25 acres or less. The bill that's in Senate Finance now passed the House 108-30. And we do believe ultimately this will help lower costs. When a developer does a PPA, they present to the utility all the costs of the project. So if there's one less road need, it doesn't mean that solar developer makes more money necessarily. It's a way to bring down the cost of the PPA. Here's one example. These are 4 folks who want to go solar at home. Previously, this would have been a single plant. Under this definition, it becomes a lot simpler and clearer to manage these projects. And we really appreciate that. Another example here, I think this is a pretty salient one. In the lower left, there's an existing solar array down in Bennington. It's a 1.6 megawatt project. In the upper right is a new proposal. Under the old ruling, the solar developer had to build that giant red road, 1,500 feet, cost tens of thousands of dollars. Under this rules, new single plant law, you can just build a little road extension right there in green, and that reduces road surface area and $50,000 less in road costs. And then importantly, just you spend about $10,000 for 800 feet of new line. So when you have to build new poles and wires, you save a lot of money for in the end. To me, this is a great way to save money and make things go faster. And my last slide. Yeah, well, I think those are all lessons. So anyway, the bottom line is this law will make it easier, faster, more affordable, and conserve natural resources by cluster, helping to incentivize cluster solar development. I think it's a great thing. So I really appreciate how much work the PUC did to bring forward a complete proposal.
Super. Questions?
And
Yes.
well, I just want to answer one other question for the rationale why this was the problem. The Public Utility Commission, when they made these civil plant rulings, they would see clustering of 500 kW metering arrays. If you're using that old infrastructure, which ratepayers have kind of helped incentivize for a new project, you can see it's being still spending. And we got all that uncertainty out of it with this new ruling, so it really will be incredibly helpful for moving forward in pushing solar on quickly, which we really need, honestly, under this Trump administration, because the tax credits are expired. The more things we can do faster without compromising environmental protection, meet our energy goals and conservation goals, the better off the ratepayers. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Right, any other questions at this point? Okay, yes,
I
okay.
mean, this could be further tomorrow. Is it anywhere in Vermont PUC or anywhere else, have we established a maximum amount of solar that is prudent to locate in this state? I mean, I don't know how many megawatts are being produced right now by solar, but is there a maximum where the EEC or anybody else says, we got plenty?
mean, statewide.
Yeah, yeah, cause I mean, I'm thinking of, you've got, I mean, we're. I don't know. 5% of the electrical needs in New England. And if we're making all that we need for what we need to do. Are we good? And then let's stop leveling fields, so Connecticut and. You know, is there a maximum of development right now or so?
There isn't an official sort of statutory or budget maximum, but I will say there's plenty of constraints on. Vermont, use of Vermont land and development, so I would say they come from multiple sources. One is land use constraints, natural resource constraints. Many sites in Vermont due to topography and natural resources are not available for development beyond a certain size, like you can't put a solar project in a wetland. You can't put a solar project in certain terrain due to soil erosion, due to water impacts, etc. Then there's system-based constraints, so certain power in certain places doesn't make sense for
Grid
some of the,
constraints.
yeah, grid constraints and economics for the utilities. There's constraints in terms of the economics of certain projects, whether the utilities in different areas have already maxed out their renewable energy standard requirements influences where utilities are gonna engage in contracts with folks, so utilities have their own obligation and they're not gonna far exceed that or exceed that obligation because economically that doesn't make sense for the utility. So there are saturation points in all of these areas that mean it's not infinite. And it's certainly not available in all areas to an extent that it cannot implicate any of those things because those are all statutory criteria that we must consider when determining whether a project should be given a certificate of public good.
And one more part that I think is important, Senator, is PUC ultimately has to rule that all these projects are in the public good for Vermont. So in the case of Shaftesbury, when they did the data analysis of how much power that thing's gonna crank out, that 20 megawatt, they found it suppressed prices enough for Vermont ratepayers that it's benefit. That won't always be the case as more and more solar comes on there, but there's a lot of checks on the growth of solar in Vermont and renewables.
Yeah, I would just hate to see every available location in Vermont filled up with solar. So then Connecticut, or some other state
Yeah,
can say, brag about their renewable energy portfolio.
your question makes me think about. Like the duck curve and, the saddle of the duck, like continuing to get lower and lower as we add more solar, but then. We need more base, and so really that implicates, that we need more storage and that those things can go together, and it also makes me think, your question makes me think about. The pressure that we're putting on the solar industry right now in terms of carrying the water for renewables and how we are not doing anything more with wind, we're not doing anything more with hydro. There's other renewables that exist that are for various reasons, not being developed, and that is a question that I would like to explore further, but there we
A
go.
lot of women in Champlain. Tons.
Let's talk more about it. Another year, but anyway, to be continued.
So
Yes. Oh, and then yeah.
I heard you say that, I think you said something about using less land or more environmentally friendly.
What's that?
I heard you say that the proposal would end up using less land and be more environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
I got the wrong part.
Yeah.
I was not there, I had to ask that, this was, council. Are we gonna end up with, does this lead to, does this make it easier to build really like the on scale large solar arrays? Or, okay,
So this provision will only affect projects that are under 5 megawatts, so roughly under 25 acres.
but Vermont scale are pretty big.
That's already, yeah, but, well, for 5, yeah, I mean,
I'm thinking about the fact that the Shaftesbury project.
well, that's 20 megawatts. That's 4 times the size.
Okay,
That's
the 4 times the size. Okay,
Yeah,
that's a good marker.
and there's only, one of those state, they're not that common. Hard to try to say, but this is distributed generation, it's roughly the same definition used for the region. or 5 megawatts, and it's gonna allow those to be pushed into more places for additional development. That's how. I would also add while we're here, instead of watching your spot on about the technologies. Once offshore wind starts coming online, which eventually it will, it's not off New England. That will really be like. Take one of those blood blisters on your fingernail, like pressure, but that is so much power, each one of those turbines, one revolution. Powers the house for a day, they have massive amounts of power out there. When they start to move a lot, which we eventually will, yes. A chunk of that, there will be significantly less pressure to build in Vermont, so that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, Senator.
Well, even
Yes.
just kind of to Senator Beck's point is, as the technology improves and we get more efficient panels,
Yeah,
is there a, obviously, we have to upgrade the grid to accept more
Yeah.
until we can come up with more storage.
So I have to go, I
Yeah.
apologize for you, Cal, so, otherwise, once we're done here, we take a break, it's our next,
Okay.
thing isn't until 10:20. So, thank you.
Is there a point at which the Public Utility Commission would say, we got all this new improved technology, to change the panels that are out there now, is there any plan to do that?
well, I think the levers of capitalism will do that. Once you have these old 5 megawatt arrays that has a 250 watt panel, and now it's on the 500 and they're bifacial, and they're on both sides. That's like doubling your money, not having to get another permit, which is always.
And we don't have to build any more solar farms.
And yeah, and so you're gonna see these things being repurposed, all over the place. I also personally believe, well, we don't have data to prove it. Most of these sites would eventually, they come offline, I don't think they'll be decommissioned, I think they're gonna go right back in there. On these same sites and repurpose, them. We're not really going to find new ones. Once their 20-year lifespan is over. They'll go right back into the stuff, it's already permitted with wiring, radius, all that good stuff.
We gotta figure out what to do with the old solar panels.
Oh, we know, they're 90% glass. And we let folks know what to do. Good. Thank you.
All right, we're done, take a break, 20 minutes.
We are live.
Good mornings, back to Natural Resources and Energy. Morning.
Good morning, Keith Gill, the Executive Director with the Land Use Review Board, and, our prime show here, we've got up on the screen, Alex Weinhagen, Board Member for the Land Use Review Board.
Morning.
And we're.
Good morning.
Yeah, to comment on, 328 study they're in. And Snre, I'll let you take it, Alex.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. This is Alex Weinhagen, board member for the Land Use Review Board. And yes, we were asked to come in and speak with you about possible amendment to S328, particularly the desire to see a report on removing barriers to farm worker housing. And yeah, so while farm worker housing is something that I think does deserve some attention, the principal regulatory barrier to that sort of housing is not Act 250, which is what our board manages. It's actually at the municipal level and also at the state level with regard to water and wastewater permitting. So there are a bunch of municipalities that have shown some leadership on this over the last couple decades, particularly in communities with orchards and other large seasonal agricultural operations, writing into their zoning regulations special allowances for farm worker dormitories and other sorts of farm worker housing. But that innovation at the municipal level is not consistent. And so it really depends for a farmer and a farm worker as to what municipality they're in, as to whether there's an opportunity to create farm worker housing. So both the expertise for how to best address that issue and the principal regulatory barrier for that type of housing is really at the municipal level. And so I would encourage you, if you're interested in seeing a report on regulatory barriers for this sort of farm worker housing, that the Land Use Review Board maybe advise but not lead on that report. Perhaps it would be better placed with a collaboration between the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Agency of Agriculture. There may be other entities. I see that the amendment discusses a needs assessment from Vermont Housing Conservation Board as well. That may be another entity that could help lead on the report. Also, I would just from a self-preservation note tell you that the Land Use Review Board is very occupied at the moment with Act 181 implementation, and particularly in the review and approval of all 11 regional plans across Vermont this calendar year. And so our capacity to do a good job on such a farm worker housing report in this calendar year is limited. So again, I think it's worth thinking about, but I don't think we're the right agency to take the lead on it, certainly not at this time.
So
Question,
what you-
yes.
What you missed.
Oh, yes, please,
Give you a quick
the recap.
fill in, so that what Alex said is that the issue is not active. The issue is zoning. Kind of, so
Okay,
maybe, and then they said we had consulted with,
sure.
but probably doesn't make sense to me. So fair, okay, so, and that might take us back to the housing conservation.
Well, then we're gonna hear from them on Friday. Today's Thursday.
Yeah.
And maybe to just add a finer point to that, our jurisdiction would not trigger on residential construction of units unless there was 10 or more over a 5-year period. So that's fairly limiting in terms of our scope of review on this.
Yep, very true.
Yeah,
Okay,
we when I worked for the town of Heinsberg for a good long time, probably 15 years or so ago, we did work with our agricultural community in town and put a farm worker housing provision into the town zoning regulations and tried to make it as flexible as possible. And that farmer did and eventually take advantage of that. But the number of units that were created, again, as Pete just mentioned, wouldn't have triggered an Act 250 review in the first place. A lot of farms have an accessory dwelling unit on the site where farm workers live and might be interested in building another one or a dormitory style facility. And again, I think the principal regulatory barrier at that point is not going to be Act 250 because jurisdiction won't trigger, but rather state water, wastewater rules and the municipal zoning structure.
Yeah. Yeah, the water and wastewater rules as well. That's a good call. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
God,
Thank you for that consideration.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
The opportunity to come in.
I will just say I'm considering just removing this.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, and let's so we have Liz here with us. Welcome.
We're not.
Rural water district.
So I'm Liz Royer, I'm the executive director of the Vermont Rural Water Association. I'm here today to speak about S328, specifically the definition of served by municipal water and sewer infrastructure in that bill. So Chair Watson and members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. Vermont Rural Water represents drinking water and wastewater systems that protect public health and allow for economic development in our towns and communities. We have several concerns and comments regarding the proposed definition of service area in S328. Less than 1/4 of the 400 plus public community drinking water systems in Vermont are owned by a town, city, or village. 78% of the water systems and infrastructure in Vermont are owned by water districts, fire districts, homeowner and condo associations, housing nonprofits, water cooperatives, and water corporations. On the wastewater side, there are 10 fire districts that provide sewer service to communities around the state. We suggest striking the term municipal in reference to sewer and water infrastructure and in reference to water and wastewater systems. I think there's a common misconception that public water systems means publicly owned, but that's certainly not the case. The vast majority are not publicly owned in terms of a traditional municipality. Fire districts are municipalities, but I think when people say municipality, they're not talking about a town government structure. In the case of a fire district, they have a prudential committee that governs the fire district, and they also have in some cases have a relationship with the town office. Some of the larger fire districts use the town offices to do billing, but in some cases they have no relationship or even an absent relationship in town. So so make that clear. In addition, we suggest adding the term utility when there's a reference to municipally adopted service and capacity agreements to capture those non-municipal systems that I just mentioned. We typically use the term system. Utility is more of a generally understood term. That's a legal definition that I don't know what the best option is, but just so everyone understands that we're going to go beyond municipal systems and include all of the public community drinking water and wastewater systems in the state. While we support the concept of directing development to areas of existing infrastructure, the public drinking water and wastewater systems throughout our state are not one size fits all. Every community and every water and wastewater system tracks and manages their own capacities and their own allocations differently. Treatment capacities can vary seasonally for both drinking water and wastewater systems. There aren't hydraulic capacity determinations for most drinking water distribution systems in the state. Regulatory and permit requirements change frequently for wastewater treatment facilities and for water as well. The question of water or sewer capacity cannot be boiled down to if a pipe runs down a road or if it's within a certain distance of a proposed development. Systems need adequate pressures to provide water for firefighting and to prevent contamination due to backflows during line breaks. Capacities of water and wastewater treatment plants and distribution and collection system infrastructure are multifaceted and constantly evolving. New unknown hazards are facing our industry on a yearly basis, whether it be floods, pandemics, cybersecurity threats, or drought. All of these have impacted operations and capacities in recent years in Vermont. We suggest replacing a proposed distance with language such as adjacent to water and wastewater systems. In addition, we suggest striking the word identified in regard to capacity constraints. And I did include kind of a draft, including all my language comments here at the bottom, just it's a little confusing to do one thing at a time. So I think, service area is also a little misleading in itself, that it's that doesn't mean that every property within the service area is actually connected to the water or sewer system. For old systems and new systems, it's really, it depends on the system, whether they have language in the town to require connection. For new properties, a lot of properties are grandfathered and not connected. In some cases, there may be new industries that aren't able to connect to water for various reasons. So I think the capacity constraints are many. And like I said, there's so many different types of systems, water and wastewater systems in the state. And they all look at allocations and they all look at their capacities in different ways. Finally, I would like to remind you of a resource as you consider the many challenges facing our industry, specifically in Vermont. We put together a webpage to inform local and state officials regarding water and wastewater systems and residential development. There's a lot of facts and figures and different topics, especially related to capacity, housing and development on that website. So I encourage you to take a look, and I'll provide a link in my testimony. So we believe this resource can inform many discussions here in the State House, including conversations on water and sewer service areas and system capacities. Thank you for your efforts towards improving public health and protecting the environment as we all work together as Vermont's.
Do we have any water systems or sewage systems in the state of Vermont that are not owned by the public? But they're actually it's a business?
Yes, there are water corporations that are, they call it private water companies that are regulated by the PUC.
Okay.
I believe there's about 20 of those, and 12 of those are also public community drinking water systems. Generally, the ski areas, there's a couple of private corporations that are active developments that we work with around the state. So there's a few, but the vast majority.
Vast majority of the
Yeah,
public.
some sort of nonprofit, cooperative.
Association.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, even those 20, as long as they're serving 25 or more people,
Yes,
would be called public
yes.
because it's who they serve, not, it's a
Not the
reflection of,
membership structure.
right, it's a reflection of the service, not the ownership.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you say 78% of public water systems are non-municipal, you're talking that includes this 20 private.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, there's about 72 fire districts, and those are kind of that's really the ones that I'm most concerned about, especially in this situation.
So just to clarify, so the Home Act, when it's in, as it says, that you can quadplex in an area that's in an area served by municipal water and sewer, that is specifically leaving out more than three quarters of the public water systems
Yes,
in the state.
yes.
I will say that is a thing that is of interest to me to fix. However, that feels like a big change, and I want to take a little bit more testimony. So I unless there's overwhelming, we should do that right now. My inclination is to not change that yet, but I think that would be a great change, essentially for next year.
Yes, and I wanna mention also, in terms of, well, water districts and fire districts, that's generally the primary water provider in
Mhm.
town. Like Brandon Fire District number 1 serves all of downtown Brandon,
Yeah.
vast majority of the residents.
Do we make the change?
I mean,
What do you think?
so it's a pretty. To have something that doesn't describe 78% of.
I know.
This is something
So
we have to do
328.
quite a bit, it's just, everyone assumes it's municipal.
Right, and it's not, sorry, what were you saying?
It's on the notice calendar today, 328.
Oh, gosh, well,
Then we're talking about 328?
well, yeah, we're talking about 328, yeah.
Okay, it's on the notice calendar today.
We have it in appropriations and haven't voted it out yet.
So the earliest would be on the notice calendar, or
It'll be on us again
if it's on, earliest to be up for action is Tuesday.
Tuesday, because it's Thursday, not Friday.
Yeah.
Well, I am hoping to take a straw poll on this amendment tomorrow, so that I would still theoretically have time to go to economic development on Tuesday morning. To say, this is the amendment that we're bringing.
Yeah.
And ask them to take a straw poll on it.
For a second read.
So just to catch you up, some regards on what we were just talking about, one of the suggestions that's coming from the rural water district is because as it says, an area served by municipal water and sewer, it actually leaves out 78% of the public water system. So people just assume that public water is municipal water. And do we change that to public? I started out by saying, I'm interested in that, feels like we should take more testimony, because that would be kind of 78%, that'd be kind of a big change. And yet maybe people are just conflating this. For the example is, the whole town of Brandon is served by a public water system, but not a municipal water system. Is that accurate?
Right, well, so the problem is, a fire district is a municipality, but when we look at legal definitions of municipal, it often does not include fire districts and water districts.
Get Michael Grady's.
Yeah,
Thanks.
what do you think, some of these?
Well. I was thinking that after yesterday, after the testimony, saying all that's gonna.
Well, and that is what is in, so we've seen the latest amendment, it takes out all of Romanet I.
Yeah.
Which is where they were going to try to fit in a distance, so that it drops the need for any further description of a distance. But then, if we're gonna drop the definition of a distance, that's sort of a separate issue from, do we want to include public water systems?
And for what purpose? This is not that I have a problem with this discussion. This is like an opportunity to add something on the bill that wasn't the part.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And so what are we doing, what are we gaining by doing that at this point?
So I think it would allow duplexing by right and quadplexing. Well, no, I guess it's really just the quadplexing, because that's what.
Where it is, where it will exist otherwise under the home act.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
for example, the town of Brandon. Who are effectively cut out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's 72 communities, well, plus maybe 12 that are water districts. So Tri-Town is a water district serving the towns in Addison County, and there's no other municipal water system there, right? It's only the water district.
Sounds like it's consistent.
That is how I feel as well. It seems almost like just an oversight that we use the word municipal instead of public. And well, actually, one question that I do have about that is, because later, what was Roman II, this would apply to an area established by the municipality by ordinance or by law, where residential connections are available to municipal water and direct and indirect service. all that is to say that. Um. Municipalities, we've heard from the LCT that most municipalities have been through. An ordinance change to define their area served by municipal water and sewer. A public water system isn't gonna have a bylaws.
A fire district could,
Okay,
yes,
so,
in their ordinance.
okay, but, I mean, when I think of, this is. I realize a sliver of an example, when I think of like public water systems, I also think about like, manufactured home parks. And it might be very small, that's still a public water system. And so, for one possibility is that we change it to public, another possibility is we just change it to fire districts, municipal water and sewer.
Maybe, I guess one other question is this issue acute enough to deal with right now? Do you think it is? You do, okay.
I've seen this mistake happen previously in other state government, and so it's just a kind of a historical.
So do you think, okay, so one potentially easy solution here, because the thing that I'm worried about is like. For a very small public water district, if we change it to public, then it leaves ambiguous, what is the area that's served? And is it reasonable to say that either the organizing entity has to identify an area? Or it doesn't apply? Maybe that's not right,
So.
how
I
busy, how
didn't know if
do
you
you?
had watched the BLCP testimony,
Yeah.
but I have talked to them before about this issue, and, they typically hear from the larger
Yeah,
towns.
right.
Right, we typically work with the smaller towns, right, who may help with our town clerk and that's it, but they still have a public community municipal water system. Right, in Bloomfield, Vermont, they have 17 connections, it is a municipal water system. The regional planning commission didn't even realize that was considered a public community water system. So I think in terms of having, the boundaries of their service area maps, I wouldn't say the vast majority of even municipalities have that. But they know where their distribution system is located. It just may not be pinpointed exactly enough. That's why we were opposed to kind of the distance of 300 feet or 2,000 feet or whatever, because they might find out the exact location of the site.
So do you think that they could come up with a map of their service area?
Eventually, yes, with funding.
Okay.
I mean, that's something the Vermont Rural Water helps small systems with all the time.
Okay.
But it's
And I'm
labor intensive.
understanding too that there are municipalities who have not yet gone through the process either.
Right.
So if we still leave it to the public water districts to determine their service area.
And many of them do have it determined, especially the larger ones, like Brandon, they know quite well, they just replace all their.
Okay.
So.
And some public water systems are private, right?
Yes.
Probably looking to. Doing the damage in that,
So
because those are the small systems or something. So even though they're public, they're private,
right. Yeah,
they're looking to include. Private.
Well, so Westminster Aqueduct Society is, again, the public water system serving the town, privately owned. Woodstock just voted to have the town take over, but they were for, a century of private owned, but operating as the drinking water system for the town. So there's a lot of kind of weird cases like that, cooperatives, that kind of thing.
so one potential path forward is because especially for these very small systems, it might take some more work and like open to having that conversation. But one possibility is that we could clarify that an area served by municipal water and sewer includes fire districts. And that would open it up somewhat
I would also say water districts for sure, but like then I just mentioned, you know, the corporations and cooperatives, and there's a lot of housing nonprofits that might wanna, you know, that serve a community that might wanna,
Yeah.
you know, be included, right? I just don't want any area of Vermont to be left out because we didn't get them in the definition.
Is a water district going to include these very small, you know, manufactured home?
No, those are generally either cooperatives, or they just, it depends if they're, owned by residents, or if they're part of a larger kind of housing, some of them are part of housing nonprofits. Some of them are part of, but they are their own public community water systems if they have more than 15, connections there.
So we're actually, so this whole discussion is about water, not.
Waste.
Doesn't.
There are 10 fire districts that are big public community, or I'm sorry, that are wastewater systems, community wastewater systems.
Oh, because this is served by water and sewer. So,
Right, it is and keyword there, I guess that was one of my questions. And that
I
would
believe
be
so. I think it is
Yeah, served by
meaningful.
vote.
And so one question is, do the 10 that also provide wastewater, are those all fire districts?
Yes, the town are fire districts, and I believe 7 provide water and wastewater, but 3 only do wastewater, like Sherburne is the Killington wastewater system. Sherburne Fire District.
Water comes from the river.
Yes, yeah,
Wow, that's
right,
interesting.
so there's there's 9, okay, direct discharge. Wastewater systems, there are 92 in the state, so 82 are municipally owned, 10 are fire districts. Public community, so this is residential drinking water systems, there are 403.
Okay.
So, yes, there's overlap, but there's also quite a bit that don't overlap. So I think.
I do think we get it. Thank you. This is very helpful. So very grateful.
I apologize for making it more complicated.
No, this is, I mean, helping us get at the intent of what I think we're trying to do. And I don't think we're at a place where we're ready to say it's water or sewer, it's water and sewer, because changing it to an or would be a much bigger deal. But I mean, I'm liking the idea of including fire districts. I realize that might just add 7. But it's, I think because what I'm envisioning is on this draft amendment, just on line 19, saying in an area established by the municipality, which includes fire districts, because they are technically municipalities, just make it really clear that that's what we're talking about. Because especially like that fire districts can have bylaws, so they would still be following the same process to set out their area, so that's clean. And then we can deal with the more complicated situations.
Yeah,
At
I
that
guess,
point.
right, and my other concern might be even for somewhere like Heinsberg, you know, it's municipally owned, it's the same operator for water and wastewater, but the collection system and the distribution system don't match up. So there's maybe parcels served by one, but not the other.
I think as long as both of them are municipally operated. I mean, we could clarify that they don't have to be operated by the same entity, that one could be, you know. Sewer can be one and the water can be the other, but the point is that that both of them exist.
We probably only have time for some of that.
I agree. So. Thank you for putting this on the radar, and how are you all feeling about the idea of just at least including fire districts? Great, so I think that would be fabulous to expand it to make sure that they're included. Are you, under the current law, they're feeling excluded from the way it's currently written? Okay,
Such a still this.
yes, yes. Right, but I'm thinking about particularly the town of Brant, for example. Okay. Yes,
One more question, it sounds like this could become a big roundup. You know, I've got a municipality that's has fire district, that has a public water system that's in the village. There's a village in town, and the village water system is on land they don't. They lease it, so
Hmm,
More than one like that.
so, I mean, it'd be nice if. Well, as we're building this thing, maybe we can build it so that. We protect the municipality and water system that sends it.
So we come back to. Like that.
Yeah.
Was to, just to set up for it.
yeah,
They tried to merge the village and town a number of times,
oh, really?
and the main reason they can't do it is because of the water district.
Oh,
Because the people in the town were saying, no, we're paying for separate district, just people that are on it to pay the sewer and water tax.
hmm,
So it's not, it's.
interesting. Interesting. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yes.
I think we're otherwise done for the day. I'm gonna ask Ellen to make one more amendment of this. Well, and just so you know, I did check in with VHCB. We're gonna hear from them tomorrow. They had some recommended language, so they're open to doing an update, but they had an update on their farm worker housing needs assessment, so that was very encouraging. So my thought at this moment is to in the next draft, have their recommended language, scrap the LURB report and change, have one further change to this first language to make sure that we're including fire districts in this language. Okay, super. And then the plan is straw poll on this tomorrow, and then hopefully I'll get to tell economic development about this on Tuesday, and then I think it might be up for action on Tuesday, so we shall see.
I wonder if we could do a straw poll.
Tonight.
By, if it's, so that you could go tomorrow.
Oh.
Because I've just been through, trying to get my amendment ready this morning, they came to get it, so.
Yes.
More about this, you'd be happier if we did it.
It'd be great. I mean, assuming that we adopt VHCB's language and it's what they want and they're happy. Yeah, if that all works for you, I realize, I know Senator Hardy mostly prefers to like see the language before she, votes on something.
Should say it,
Yes, yeah. So, that's true, because we can have a draft.
you would be happier.
Yeah, well, and if I could, and I know Senator Clarkson is away still, but wonder if can coordinate, I can at least reach out to them and be like, I have this amendment, can I continue the committee tomorrow? Okay. Any other thoughts before we adjourn? Okay, great, and we are adjourned.
Someone has a speaker.